So my lawn kind of sucks. It's quite large, it's bumpy, if you run across it, a twisted ankle is likely. And I've actually been spending a lot more time outside doing things like gardening and whatnot, and I would love to spend more time doing that than actually keeping the yard mowed because I have kids who like to go out there and play in it. And that's where this guy comes in. This is the Ecovacs Goat A3000, their top of the line robot mower. And after using it for a couple weeks now, it feels now like an absolute must if you're either a tech nerd like me or you're incredibly busy and you just want a perfect mowed yard all the time. Full disclosure, this thing is not cheap. They do have other models that are much cheaper that we'll talk about, but they did send this over to me for free. I get to keep it, so disclosure right there. And being offered to check out one of these was really cool because the only other time I've really ever seen one was when I worked for an HOA company and I would like drive through these gated communities with a bunch of McMansions. I saw like 2 of them on yards and I thought that it was the coolest thing ever. So when they reached out and wanted to send this to me, I got excited. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the unboxing, the setup, and check out its features and limitations. So I kind of recorded the unboxing process. It's pretty simple, but while I go ahead and do that, I'm going to talk about some of the specs and features of this thing. Now, this is a tech channel, so what tech is actually in here? Well, it's a Ryzen X5 8-core processor with 10 TOPS for AI-related tasks. Yes, of course, they've managed to squeeze AI into this thing, allowing it to identify and navigate around obstacles such as my pet Dixie over here, bushes, toys, and other low-lying objects. It does it with the 360-degree LiDAR here on the top and the AIVI 3D cameras here on the front. They call it their LELS dual LiDAR system, giving us 360 degrees of LiDAR and the 3D TOF camera here on the front. The 360-degree LiDAR has a 59-degree field of view, which it can scan and formulate 3D maps for navigation. The 3D camera here on the front has close distance measurements for obstacle navigation and allows it to get as close to edges as possible. Which, speaking of navigation and mapping, it was actually pretty easy to set this thing up. The dock, it doesn't come in very many pieces. It's literally the dock, 2 pieces just snap together, little charging bay that you put outside. You have to give it a little bit of room to work around with. It comes with little screws to kind of screw the actual base plate into the ground if you need that. But all you do, download their app, you scan the little code on here, and then you begin the setup process. It goes through a whole bunch of different tips and tricks and everything you kind of need to know to get this thing set up properly, including mapping, which is actually kind of fun to do. Because what you do is you only really have to do this once, unless if you want to create a new map or remap, is you use your phone and a little joystick in the app to manually kind of drive it around the border of your yard, setting the boundary, and then from there within the app, if you like drive it from the front to the backyard, you could set different zones, so you can tell it to go mow a certain zone, or you can schedule it to do different zones on different days, depending on how you want to do it. The robot also has an auto mapping feature, so when you're doing the mapping process, you can hit auto mapping, and it will use all of its LiDAR cameras and all that to actually automatically create the boundaries for you. And if you don't like something it automatically did, you can undo it, manually control it, and then hit auto mapping again when it's in a place that you prefer. Overall, working smarter, not harder. While traditional push mowers demand more time and effort, many other robotic mowers come with complex setups that require buried boundary wires or RTK navigation, both difficult to install and prone to signal loss. And there's all kinds of additional features that we can't really have time to dive into when it comes to mapping, including setting like no entry points, various no-go zones, just a whole bunch of different things. Additionally, on the actual unit, we have this big red e-stop button right here. And we have a little screen with some buttons, which you can use to do some manual controls, primarily for setting kind of the child lock code on it to access it. And you use the buttons if it like happens to get stuck and you need to move it over a little bit, you can restart it directly with the buttons here on top. And then when it actually rolls up into the dock, there's these 2 metal prongs right here that just slide on in and it charges, and it actually charges pretty quick. For me, it went from like 10% to 100% in maybe less than a couple hours. And when it comes to the battery on this thing, it was able to mow my entire backyard from about 95% to 20%, and it is a big backyard. So now, of course, this thing's an actual mower. Let's talk about how powerful of a motor it is and how it works. Right here on the top, it says 32-volt energy platform, and that gives us about 100 watts of actual cutting power. And it has dual kind of blades here that actually have little razor blades on them. So replacing those is relatively easy. But those dual blades spin at 3000 RPM with a 33 centimeter cutting width, which here, according to the specs, it's capable of handling lawns effectively at 400 square meters per hour. This thing doesn't move as quick as you would pushing a lawnmower, but it does move pretty quick compared to, especially to other robots, at about 0.7 meters per second. Now, you will notice in this shot that the grass on the actual edge is pretty tall. The maximum height for cutting is 10 centimeters, so I will have to edge this myself. But if you enable a true edge option within these settings, you can use enhance mode, which can cut up to 15 centimeters. However, if it is high density, the cutting effect may be slightly reduced. So how close it can get to the edge is going to, one, depend on your terrain. So if there's like a fence and you have tall grass right next to the fence, it's not a weed eater. It's not going to be able to cut that, just like a traditional lawnmower wouldn't. But there are some modes that you can set. So you can set it to be restricted at the border that you set previously, so it won't go out of that no matter what. Or you can set it to kind of see if the ground is level. So if you have like a sidewalk that's flush with the grass, it'll kind of overlap the sidewalk like you would with a lawnmower and go ahead and mow that grass there. Now the app here is pretty cool. Obviously it's sitting right next to me, so I'm not really going to be able to screw around with it too much. But you have two different modes, Bluetooth and standard mode. I'm pretty sure standard is just a Wi-Fi connection. If I jump into Bluetooth mode real quick, it's right here, so that should be fine. You can see the kind of layout that I made after kind of playing and experimenting with it. The mower is parked here, and you could see these little dark spots are actually where I have trees planted, so they kind of avoided those. The mapping system's cool. Right now it's set to auto, but I could go ahead and set it to do area. I could set it to edge only. I can manual. If I go over here, you could set schedules, so I could, like, let's say have it mow the backyard every other day, and then maybe go into these front yard patches like once a week or something like that. Now where we can really have fun is the settings. So if I go in here, you can see I've had it do 3 mows so far with a total duration of 2 hours, almost 6,000 square feet of area mowed. And if we go down to the mowing settings, here's where you can set a whole bunch of stuff. So we have auto, so I could change how auto works. So I could set the mowing height. Right now 2.4 is the default. I can have it go as low as 1.2 inches or as high as 3.5. You could speed it up if you want to. You have your object avoidance settings, so I could change it to like a high grass environment. You hear it give me some feedback when I make adjustments. We have mowing direction settings, which is cool. And right here, this is the edge mode that I was talking about earlier. So the default is edge mowing, so it will use the borders that you set, but kind of adjust it based on what the actual LiDAR and 3D sensors are seeing. Cross boundary is where it actually kind of goes up on the sidewalks that are out of the border. And then we have mow along boundaries, so it won't do anything extra beyond what you initially set it when you drove it around your yard. We have rain sensor, animal protection, which I went and disabled because my dogs kept screwing with it. And realistically, I'm not really going to run it when my dogs are actually out there on a consistent basis. And then under settings, we have other, so we have help improvement programs. But if we go over here and we go to the robot settings, this is where we can enable the AI recognition, so it can starts actually being able to detect various things such as those pets, dogs, pipes, things like that. So yeah, that is the bulk of the app. It's relatively simple, but with just enough features. One thing that I might as well point out real quick. So if we hit this little camera button on the top, I have to switch the mode. Standard, boop, put in my pin, and you could actually use this as a little
Video turned on.
camera. So then you could see me right here. Hello there. And I could talk through it, record media. And here's a little clip earlier of me actually using it in that way to kind of see what it's doing. It's pretty cool. So overall, my experience with this thing has been really, really cool. It's a fascinating product. It's like kind of silly, but at the same time so incredibly cool and convenient. If you have a pretty big yard and you just want to keep it maintained all the time, then getting something like this is a definite steal. Especially if you have like a half acre or more, getting this unit is probably a good idea. For smaller yards like mine, this is honestly unnecessary, but they do have smaller models that do a smaller area with basically almost the exact same features. So like the recommended cutting area for this one is 3/4 of an acre, but then they have the A2500, which can do 5/8 of an acre, and then the O1000, which does 1/4 of an acre, which that one for $1,000 is probably the best bet. This thing comes in at a whopping $3,000, but if you have both a big lawn and a big wallet, why not? So yeah, if you're interested in checking this out, do make sure you check out the link down below. And with all that, I do hope you have an absolutely beautiful day, and goodbye.